The doorbell rang at 11:47 p.m. Mark Wilson wasn't expecting anyone, especially not this late. His 5-year-old daughter Emma had finally fallen asleep after another night of asking when Mommy was coming back. As he peered through the peephole, his heart stopped. Standing on his porch, drenched from the rain, was Sarah, his ex-wife's sister. The woman he hadn't seen since the divorce 3 years ago. The woman who had once been his closest friend before everything fell apart. But it wasn't her unexpected presence that would change his life forever, it was the small suitcase beside her and the envelope clutched in her trembling hands. "I know I'm the last person you want to see," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. "But there's something you need to know about why Jessica really left. If you're wondering what could possibly bring Sarah to Mark's doorstep after all this time, and what secret she's been keeping about her own sister, stay with me. Because what happens next will completely transform everything Mark thought he knew about his failed marriage, his daughter's future, and the woman standing before him." Mark stood frozen in the doorway, the cool night air rushing past him into the warmth of the home he'd rebuilt piece by piece since Jessica walked out. For 3 years, he'd been both mother and father to Emma, working remotely as a graphic designer to be there for every school pickup, every nightmare, every skinned knee. 3 years of explaining to a growing child why Mommy didn't live with them anymore. 3 years of unanswered questions. "Sarah, it's almost midnight," he said, his voice low to avoid waking Emma. "Whatever this is about." "Please," she interrupted, her eyes red-rimmed from either crying or the rain, he couldn't tell which. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Something in her expression made him step aside. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe just the muscle memory of the friendship they once shared. Sarah had been the one who introduced him to Jessica 8 years ago. She had been his best friend's girlfriend first, before becoming his sister-in-law, before becoming nothing at all. The living room was cluttered with Emma's toys, evidence of their evening routine. Sarah's gaze lingered on a framed photo of Emma from her recent kindergarten graduation, her smile revealing a missing front tooth. "She looks more like Jessica every day," Sarah murmured. Mark felt the familiar tightness in his chest. "Why are you here, Sarah? After 3 years of radio silence from your entire family?" Sarah placed the envelope on the coffee table between them. "I found these last week when I was helping my parents clean out their attic. Jessica made me promise never to tell you, but..." She took a deep breath. "I can't keep this secret anymore. Not after seeing what it's done to Emma. To you." Mark stared at the envelope, his name written in Jessica's unmistakable handwriting. "What is this?" "Medical records," Sarah said quietly. "And a letter she wrote to you but never sent. If you're feeling invested in Mark and Emma's story already, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more content like this. Because what Sarah reveals next will make you question everything about love, sacrifice, and the length someone might go to protect the people they care about." Mark's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. Inside were hospital documents dated 6 months before Jessica left. Diagnosis: Stage 3 ovarian cancer. Treatment options. Survival rates. And beneath it all, a handwritten letter. "My dearest Mark, asterisk. By the time you read this, if you ever do, I'll have already left. The doctors gave me options, but all of them end the same way. I've chosen to spare you and Emma the pain of watching me disappear piece by piece. I'd rather you hate me for leaving than break your hearts by dying. I know it's selfish. I know Emma deserves better. But I can't bear the thought of her memories of me being tainted by hospitals and sickness, asterisk. I've made Sarah promise not to tell you. Please don't blame her, asterisk. All my love, always, asterisk. Jessica, asterisk." Mark looked up, his vision blurred. "She's been sick all this time? Where is she now? Is she?" "She's alive," Sarah said quickly. "But that's the second part of why I'm here." She hesitated. The treatments worked better than expected. She's been in remission for almost a year. A year? Mark's voice rose, and he immediately glanced toward Emma's bedroom. She's been cancer-free for a year and didn't think to let me know? To let her daughter know? She's afraid, Sarah explained. Afraid you won't forgive her. Afraid Emma won't understand. Afraid the cancer will come back and she'll hurt you all over again. Mark paced the small living room, running his hands through his hair. So why now? Why are you telling me this now? Sarah reached for her phone and pulled up a photo. It showed Jessica in a hospital bed, noticeably thinner but smiling weakly at the camera. The date stamp was from 2 days ago. Because the cancer is back, Sarah whispered. And this time, she's asking for you and Emma. The revelation hit Mark like a physical blow. For 3 years, he'd nursed his anger, constructed a narrative where Jessica had simply abandoned them for a new life, a new start. He'd protected Emma from the truth because he thought the truth was that her mother didn't want her enough to stay. How could he have been so wrong? There's something else you should know, Sarah continued, her voice barely audible. Something I've never told anyone. The weight of what Sarah is about to reveal will leave you speechless. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens when Mark finally comes face to face with the woman who broke his heart, for reasons he never could have imagined. Sarah's hands twisted in her lap. I was there the day she got the diagnosis. I went with her to every appointment after that. I watched her make this impossible choice, and I helped her pack her bags when she left you. Mark felt a surge of betrayal. You helped her abandon us? I thought I was helping her protect you, Sarah countered. But that's not what I need to tell you. She took a deep breath. The night before she left, she asked me to promise something else. She made me promise that if she ever went into remission, would check on you and Emma. Not just once, but regularly. To make sure you were okay. Mark frowned. But you never. I did, Sarah interrupted. For 3 years, I've been watching from a distance. The coffee shop across from Emma's school? I work there part-time just to see her walk in with you every morning. The anonymous donations to her school fundraisers? That was me, using the money Jessica left me to take care of her daughter from afar. The children's books that mysteriously arrive on Emma's birthday and Christmas? Jessica picks them out, but I'm the one who leaves them on your porch when you're not looking. Mark sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. All this time, she's been loving you both the only way she thought she could, Sarah finished. And all this time, I've been. She stopped, color rising to her cheeks. You've been what? Mark pressed. Sarah looked away. I've been falling in love with the man my sister left behind. With the father who rebuilt his life for his daughter. With you, Mark. The confession hung in the air between them, as impossible as it was inevitable. Mark stared at Sarah, seeing her, truly seeing her, for the first time in years. The woman who had been his friend before anything else. The woman who had kept her sister's devastating secret while silently watching over the family Jessica left behind. I shouldn't have said that, Sarah backpedaled. That's not why I'm here. Jessica needs you now. Emma needs her mother. Mark's mind raced. Where is she? Memorial Hospital. She was admitted yesterday when her pain became too severe to manage at home. Mark checked his watch. Almost 1 a.m. I can't just wake Emma and take her to a hospital in the middle of the night to see the mother she barely remembers. I know, Sarah nodded. That's why I came tonight, to give you time to process this, to decide how to tell Emma. Jessica doesn't expect you to come right away. She just wanted you to know the truth, finally. Mark stood and walked to the window, looking out at the rain-slicked street. 3 years, he murmured. 3 years of thinking she just didn't love us enough. She loved you too much, Sarah corrected gently. Too much to let you watch her die. And now? Mark turned back to her. Now she might die anyway, and Emma will lose her mother all over again. The next morning brings a conversation that will break your heart and heal it all at once. If you're invested in this family's journey, hit that like button and subscribe now. Dawn broke over the horizon as Mark sat at his kitchen table, the contents of the envelope spread before him. He hadn't slept. How could he? His world had been upended in the space of a few hours. Sarah had left shortly after her confession, insisting she would get a hotel room nearby. "Take all the time you need," she'd said. "I'll be here when you're ready to talk about what happens next." What happens next? As if there was any clear path forward from this moment. The sound of small feet padding down the hallway alerted him to Emma's awakening. He quickly gathered the papers, returning them to the envelope just as his daughter appeared in the doorway, her favorite stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. "Daddy? Did you have a sleepover party without me?" Emma asked, rubbing her eyes. Mark smiled despite himself. "What makes you think that, pumpkin?" "There's 2 coffee cups," she pointed to the evidence on the counter. "And you're wearing yesterday clothes. Smart kid." "Too smart sometimes. Someone came to visit very late, after you were asleep." Emma climbed onto his lap, her small body warm against his chest. "Was it the birthday fairy?" "My birthday's not for 3 more months." Mark took a deep breath. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that her mother didn't abandon her, but thought she was dying? How do you tell a child that the parent she's been missing has been missing her too, from hospital rooms and through secret gifts? "Emma, do you remember when we talked about Mommy? About why she doesn't live with us anymore?" Emma nodded solemnly. "You said sometimes grown-ups have big problems they need to fix by themselves." "That's right. Well, it turns out Mommy has been trying to fix a very big problem all this time. She's been sick, sweetie. Very sick." Emma's eyes widened. "Like when I had strep throat and couldn't go to school for a whole week?" "A bit more serious than that," Mark explained gently. "The kind of sick that means you have to stay in the hospital for a long time." "Is that where Mommy is?" "In the hospital?" Mark nodded. "Yes. And she would really like to see you." Emma was quiet for a moment, processing this new information. "Is that why she went away? Because she was sick?" "Yes, baby. She didn't want you to see her so sick, so she thought it would be better to go away until she got better." "Did she get better?" Mark hesitated. "For a while, yes. But now she's sick again, and this time, she wants us to be there with her." Emma's next question cut straight to his heart. "Does Mommy still love me even though she went away?" Mark pulled his daughter closer. "Your mommy has never, ever stopped loving you. Not for one single second. Can we go see her today?" Emma asked, her voice small but hopeful. "Yes," Mark decided. "We can go see her today." As he helped Emma get dressed, Mark's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, Jessica had a rough night. Doctors are with her now. Take your time, but don't wait too long, The hospital corridor seemed endless as Mark walked hand in hand with Emma, Sarah leading the way. They'd stopped at the gift shop, where Emma had carefully selected a plush bear wearing a "Get Well Soon" t-shirt. Now, as they approached Jessica's room, Mark felt Emma's grip tighten. "What if she doesn't remember me?" Emma whispered. Mark knelt down to her level. "She remembers everything about you. Every single day you've been apart has been hard for her too." Sarah knocked gently on the door before pushing it open. The room was dimly lit, the blinds drawn against the midday sun. And there, propped up against a mountain of pillows, was Jessica. Mark barely recognized her. The vibrant, laughing woman he'd married had been replaced by someone fragile, her once thick brown hair now a short, wispy covering on her head. But her eyes, those were the same. And when she saw Emma, those eyes filled with tears. "Emma," Jessica breathed, her voice raspy but filled with wonder. "My beautiful girl." Emma hesitated in the doorway, suddenly shy. Mark gave her a gentle nudge. "It's okay, sweetheart." Emma took a tentative step forward, then another, until she was standing beside the bed. She held out the bear. "I brought you this. His name is Mr. Hugs. He helps me when I'm sick." Jessica accepted the bear with trembling hands. "He's perfect. Thank you." "Daddy says you've been sick for a really long time," Emma continued, gaining confidence. "Is that why you couldn't come to my birthday parties?" Jessica nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "Yes, baby. That's why. And I've missed every single one of them." "That's okay," Emma said with the simple forgiveness only a child could offer. "You can come to my next one. It's going to be unicorn-themed." Jessica looked up at Mark, her eyes asking the question she couldn't voice, "Will I be here for her next birthday?" Mark moved closer to the bed, his anger from the previous night melting away at the sight of Jessica's suffering. "Emma, why don't you show Mommy your missing tooth? Tell her about how the tooth fairy came." As Emma launched into her story, climbing carefully onto the edge of the bed, Mark stepped back to stand beside Sarah in the doorway. "Thank you," he whispered. "For bringing her back to us, even if it's just for now." Sarah's eyes were fixed on the scene before them, mother and daughter reconnecting as if the years between them were nothing but a brief interruption. "I should have told you sooner. I'm sorry." "You were keeping a promise," Mark acknowledged. "I understand that now. What happens in the next few weeks will test this family in ways they never imagined. But the greatest challenge might be what Sarah confessed in that late-night conversation. If you want to know how this story ends, make sure you've subscribed." The days blurred into weeks as their lives reorganized around hospital visits. Emma brought her school projects to show Jessica, curling up beside her mother's bed to read the books that had mysteriously appeared on past birthdays. Mark took a leave of absence from work, juggling Emma's school schedule with Jessica's treatment schedule. And through it all, Sarah remained. She brought coffee when the hospital cafeteria had closed. She stayed with Emma when Mark needed to speak privately with doctors. She became the bridge between the life they had been living and the uncertain future ahead. One evening, as Jessica slept and Emma colored quietly in the corner of the hospital room, Mark found Sarah in the hallway, staring out the window at the setting sun. "The oncologist says the new treatment is showing promise," Mark said, joining her. "Her numbers are improving." Sarah smiled, genuine relief washing over her features. "That's wonderful news." "It is," Mark agreed. "But there's something we need to talk about." Sarah tensed. "Mark, what I said that night, about my feelings, you can forget it. It was inappropriate and—" "I can't forget it," Mark interrupted. "And I don't want to." Sarah turned to face him fully. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that these past weeks have shown me something I didn't expect. Watching you with Emma, seeing how you've supported Jessica despite everything, I've realized that you've always been there. Even when I thought I was alone." "She's my sister," Sarah said simply. "And Emma is my niece. Of course I'd be there." "It's more than that," Mark insisted. "And we both know it." Sarah looked away. "This isn't the time, Mark. Jessica is fighting for her life down the hall. And if she wins that fight? What then?" Mark pressed. "Do we all go back to our separate corners? Do you disappear from our lives again?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "I haven't thought that far ahead." "Well, I have," Mark said. "And I can't imagine a future where you're not part of our lives, part of my life, in some way." Before Sarah could respond, a nurse appeared in the hallway. "Mr. Wilson? Your wife is asking for you." Mark hesitated, caught between the conversation he was having and the woman waiting for him. We'll finish this later, he promised Sarah. Jessica was sitting up when Mark entered, looking more alert than she had in days. Emma had fallen asleep on the small couch in the corner, her coloring book still open on her lap. She refused to go home, Jessica said softly, watching their daughter. Said she needed to stay to make sure you were okay. Mark smiled, pulling a chair closer to the bed. She's stubborn. Like her mother. Like both her parents, Jessica corrected. She reached for Mark's hand. The doctors just came by. They say the treatment is working better than expected. I know. I just spoke with them. Jessica's eyes searched his. They're talking about remission, Mark. Real, lasting remission this time. The hope in her voice was cautious, as if speaking it too loudly might scare it away. Mark squeezed her hand. That's amazing news, Jess. But it doesn't fix everything, does it? She asked. It doesn't erase the last 3 years. Mark was quiet for a moment. No, it doesn't. But maybe it doesn't have to. What do you mean? I mean that we can't go back to who we were before. Too much has happened. I've changed. You've changed. Emma has grown up without you. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. I know. And I'll regret that choice for the rest of my life, however long that might be. But that doesn't mean we can't build something new, Mark continued. Something different, but still good. What would that even look like? Jessica asked. Mark glanced toward the hallway where Sarah had been standing. I don't know exactly. But I think it includes all of us finding a way forward together. Jessica followed his gaze, understanding dawning in her eyes. Sarah, she whispered. You and Sarah. There is no me and Sarah, Mark clarified. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But there are feelings there that I can't ignore, and I won't lie to you about them. Jessica was quiet for a long moment. I saw it, you know. Even before I got sick. The way she looked at you sometimes. The way you two could talk for hours about things I never understood. Jess. No, let me finish, she interrupted. When I asked her to watch over you and Emma, part of me knew I was being selfish in more ways than one. I was asking her to stay close to the man she cared about, but never close enough to act on those feelings. I was punishing her for loving you by making her your secret guardian. Mark hadn't considered it from that angle before. That's not fair to her. None of this has been fair to anyone, Jessica acknowledged. But maybe now we have a chance to make it right. The conversation was interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Sarah stood there, hesitant to enter. Sorry, I just wanted to check if Emma needed anything before I head out for the night. Jessica beckoned her sister into the room. Come in. We were just talking about you, actually. Sarah's eyes widened slightly as she looked between Mark and Jessica. Oh. About how much we owe you, Jessica clarified. For everything you've done these past 3 years. Sarah shook her head. You don't owe me anything. That's what family does. Family, Jessica repeated thoughtfully. Yes, I suppose that's what we all are now, isn't it? A rather complicated family. The 3 adults fell into silence, the only sound in the room Emma's soft breathing as she slept on, unaware of the shifting dynamics around her. What happens next will surprise you. The journey of healing is never straightforward, and sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the greatest happiness. If you're touched by this story, please like and subscribe for more content that explores the complexities of love, forgiveness, and family. 6 months later, Jessica stood in the backyard of Mark's house, their house now, in a way, watching as Emma chased Bubbles across the lawn. Her hair had grown back, darker and curlier than before. Her body had regained some of its strength, though she knew she would never be exactly as she was before cancer. Need a refill? Sarah appeared beside her, holding out a glass of lemonade. Thanks, Jessica accepted the drink. It's a perfect day for a birthday party, isn't it? Sarah nodded, looking across the yard where Mark was setting up the unicorn-themed decorations for Emma's 6th birthday. She's been talking about nothing else for weeks. I know. I can't believe I'm actually here to see it, Jessica said, emotion thick in her voice. Sarah put an arm around her sister's shoulders. You're here. That's what matters. The arrangement they had settled on was unconventional, to say the least. Jessica had moved into the guest room of Mark's house 3 months ago when she was strong enough to leave the hospital but still needed daily care. Sarah lived in an apartment 10 minutes away but spent most of her time at the house, helping with Emma and supporting Jessica's recovery. Mark and Jessica were no longer husband and wife in any real sense, but they were co-parents committed to giving Emma stability and love. And Mark and Sarah, their relationship was evolving slowly, cautiously, with Jessica's blessing but also with the complexity that came from their unusual situation. Do you ever regret coming back? Sarah asked suddenly. It would have been easier to stay away, to let them remember you as you were. Jessica watched as Emma ran to Mark, throwing her arms around his legs in excitement over the unicorn piñata he just hung. Not for a second, she answered honestly. Even with all the complications, all the hard conversations, all the uncertain future ahead, I'd rather have this messy reality than the clean break I thought I was giving them. Sarah squeezed her sister's shoulders. I'm glad. Because Emma needs her mother. And I need my sister. And Mark? Jessica asked, glancing sideways at Sarah. What does he need? Sarah's cheeks flushed slightly. That's still evolving. You know I meant what I said in the hospital, Jessica said. I want you both to be happy. However that looks. Before Sarah could respond, Emma came bounding over, her face alight with excitement. Mommy. Aunt Sarah. Daddy says it's time for cake and presents. Jessica knelt down, opening her arms to her daughter. Lead the way, birthday girl. As they gathered around the table, Mark lighting the candles on the unicorn cake, Jessica caught his eye across the flickering flames. There was a warmth there, different from the love they once shared but no less meaningful. A look that said, we made it. Against all odds, we found our way back to each other, even if it's not the way we expected, Emma closed her eyes tight, making her wish before blowing out all 6 candles in one determined breath. The adults cheered, and Mark began cutting slices of cake. What did you wish for, sweetie? Sarah asked, helping to serve. Emma shook her head solemnly. Can't tell or it won't come true. But I think it's already starting to. Later that night, after the party had ended and Emma was tucked in bed with her new toys, the 3 adults sat on the back porch, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. I have something to tell you both, Jessica said, breaking the comfortable silence. The doctors called yesterday with my latest scan results. Mark and Sarah both tensed, turning to her with identical expressions of concern. Jessica smiled. Still in remission. And they're officially moving me from guarded to optimistic about my long-term prognosis. The relief was palpable as Mark reached for her hand on one side and Sarah's on the other. That's the best birthday present Emma could have asked for, he said. Speaking of presents, Jessica continued, I've been thinking about what's next. For all of us. What do you mean? Sarah asked. I mean that I'm getting stronger every day. Soon, I won't need to live here for medical reasons. Jessica took a deep breath. I've been looking at apartments nearby. Close enough to see Emma every day, but giving everyone some space to figure out what comes next. Mark frowned. Jess, you don't have to. I do, she interrupted gently. Not just for you and Sarah, but for me too. I need to learn who I am now, after everything. And Emma needs to see that her parents can love her completely even if we live in different houses. Sarah was quiet, processing this unexpected development. "Are you sure?" Jessica nodded. "More sure than I've been about anything in a long time." She looked between them. "We've been given a second chance, all of us. And I don't want to waste it trying to force our lives back into old patterns that don't fit anymore." As the night deepened around them, the three sat together, connected by hands and history and hope for the future. It wasn't a conventional happy ending, but it was theirs, hard-won and honest. Emma's birthday wish, whispered in the moment before she blew out her candles, had been simple: "I wish for my family to stay together forever." And in her 6-year-old wisdom, perhaps she understood something the adults were still learning, that together didn't have to mean what it once did. It could mean something new, something stronger, forged in the fire of loss and recovery. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more content that explores the beautiful complexity of human relationships. Remember that sometimes the most painful chapters of our lives can lead to the most unexpected blessings, and that family, in all its forms, is worth fighting for. 3 years later, on Emma's 9th birthday, Mark stood in the kitchen of his home, putting the finishing touches on another unicorn cake, a tradition that had continued despite Emma's insistence that she was too old for baby stuff now. "Need any help?" Sarah asked, coming up behind him and wrapping her arms around his waist. The diamond ring on her left hand caught the light as she reached around him to swipe a bit of frosting. "Hey, that's for the birthday girl," Mark protested, turning to face his wife of 6 months. Sarah grinned. "She won't miss one tiny taste." The doorbell rang, and Emma's voice called out from the living room, "I'll get it." "It's probably Mom." Mark and Sarah followed Emma to the door, where Jessica stood with a large wrapped package and a bright smile. Her hair had grown long again, though she kept it shorter than before her illness. 5 years cancer-free had restored much of her health, though she would always carry the physical and emotional scars of her journey. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." Jessica hugged Emma tightly before nodding to Mark and Sarah. "The place looks great. Unicorns forever, huh?" Emma rolled her eyes dramatically. "Dad insists. I wanted a science theme this year." "Well, I brought something that might satisfy both requirements," Jessica said, handing over the package. "Go ahead, open it." Emma tore into the wrapping paper to reveal a high-powered telescope. "No way. This is amazing. Your mom and I went in on it together," Sarah explained. "She found it, I helped assemble it last night at her place." The easy cooperation between Jessica and Sarah had been the most unexpected development of all. What had begun as a complicated triangle of guilt, obligation, and unspoken feelings had evolved into a genuine friendship between the two sisters, strengthened by their shared love for Emma and their commitment to creating a healthy extended family. Jessica had found her own path forward too. She now worked as a patient advocate at the same hospital where she had received treatment, using her experience to help others navigate the overwhelming world of cancer diagnosis and care. She dated occasionally, though she hadn't yet found a relationship that felt right. "The party guests should be arriving soon," Mark said, checking his watch. "Emma, why don't you help your mom set up the telescope in the backyard while Sarah and I finish the food?" As Emma eagerly pulled Jessica toward the back door, chattering about the constellations she wanted to see later that night, Mark turned to Sarah. "Did you tell her yet?" he asked quietly. Sarah shook her head. "Not yet. I thought maybe after the party, when it's just family." Mark placed a hand gently on Sarah's still flat stomach. "She's going to be thrilled to be a big cousin." "I hope so," Sarah bit her lip. "It's a big change." "A good change," Mark assured her. "The best kind." Later that night, after Emma's friends had gone home and the three adults sat in the backyard watching Emma explore the night sky with her new telescope, Sarah cleared her throat nervously. "Emma, we have one more birthday surprise for you," she called. "Can you come here for a minute?" Emma reluctantly tore herself away from the telescope. "Is it another present?" "Sort of," Mark said, putting his arm around Sarah. "It's something that won't arrive for about 7 more months." Emma looked confused for a moment before her eyes widened. "Wait, are you?" Sarah nodded, smiling. "You're going to be a big cousin. Your Aunt Sarah and Dad are having a baby." Emma squealed with delight, throwing her arms around Sarah. "That's the best birthday present ever." Jessica moved to join them, genuine happiness in her eyes as she hugged Sarah. "Congratulations, sis. You're going to be an amazing mother." As the 4 of them stood together under the stars, this unconventional, hard-won family, Mark reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From that rainy night when Sarah appeared on his doorstep with a truth that changed everything, to this moment of new beginnings and continued healing. None of it had been easy. There had been tears and arguments, therapy sessions and difficult conversations. There had been days when the pain of the past seemed too heavy to bear, and nights when the uncertainty of the future kept them all awake. But there had also been forgiveness, understanding, growth. And most importantly, there had been love, not the simple, uncomplicated love of fairy tales, but the messy, resilient love of real life. The kind that breaks and heals and transforms into something stronger than before. As Emma returned to her telescope, pointing out constellations to her mother, Mark squeezed Sarah's hand. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" she asked. "For knocking on my door that night. For being brave enough to tell the truth. For staying, even when it was complicated." Sarah leaned her head against his shoulder. Some doors, once opened, change everything. And in the quiet backyard, under a canopy of stars, the family that had been broken and rebuilt continued writing their story, not the one they had originally planned, but perhaps the one they were always meant to live. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more content that explores the beautiful complexity of human relationships. Remember that sometimes the most painful chapters of our lives can lead to the most unexpected blessings, and that family, in all its forms, is worth fighting for. The little girl's eyes found his across the crowded mall, and in that moment, Jake Collins knew his life would never be the same. What he couldn't possibly know was that taking her small, trembling hand would lead him straight into the path of the most powerful woman in the country, and unearth a secret that had been buried for 8 long years. If you think this is just another heartwarming reunion story, I promise you'll need tissues for what happens next. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe now, because the twist coming in this true story left millions speechless. Jake Collins wiped down the last table at Brewster's Cafe, his shoulders aching from another 12-hour shift. At 34, his life had settled into a predictable rhythm: work, home to his 7-year-old daughter Lily, sleep, repeat. The cafe job wasn't glamorous, but it offered flexible hours that allowed him to be there when Lily got home from school, a priority since his wife Marie had died from cancer 3 years ago. "You heading out, Jake?" his manager called from behind the counter. "Yeah, just need to grab a few things at the mall for Lily's science project before I pick her up from my sister's," Jake replied, untying his apron. The Westfield Mall was crowded for a Thursday afternoon. Jake moved quickly through the throngs of shoppers, mentally calculating how much time he had before he needed to collect Lily. That's when he noticed the small figure standing alone near the fountain, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Dark curls framed a heart-shaped face, her blue dress rumpled and slightly damp at the hem. Jake glanced around, expecting to see a frantic parent searching nearby, but no one seemed to be looking for her. He approached carefully, kneeling down to her level. "Hi there. Are you lost?" The girl nodded, her bottom lip trembling. "I can't find my nanny." "What's your name?" Jake asked gently. "Sophia," she whispered. "Well, Sophia, I'm Jake. Would you like me to help you find your nanny or your parents?" She nodded again, a tear sliding down her cheek. Jake offered his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. Her small fingers curled trustingly around his, and something shifted in his chest, a protective instinct he'd only ever felt with Lily. What Jake didn't realize as he led Sophia toward the mall security office was that security cameras were capturing their every move, footage that would soon be scrutinized by a team of private investigators and broadcast across every major news network in the country. At the security office, the guard took down Sophia's information. She knew her full name, Sophia Grace Montgomery, but couldn't remember her phone number or address. She explained that her nanny, Claudia, had been shopping with her when Sophia had stopped to look at a toy display. When she turned around, Claudia was gone. "Do you know your mom or dad's phone number?" the guard asked. Sophia shook her head. "Mommy is very busy. She's away on her big airplane." Jake stayed with Sophia while security made announcements over the mall intercom. An hour passed with no response. The guard mentioned calling Child Protective Services, and Jake saw fear flash in Sophia's eyes. "I can stay with her a bit longer," Jake offered. "My daughter's with my sister anyway. Maybe we could get her something to eat while we wait?" The guard looked relieved. After taking Jake's information and making a copy of his ID, he agreed to call Jake's cell if anyone came looking for Sophia. At the food court, Sophia picked at a plate of chicken nuggets while Jake called his sister to explain the situation. "You always were a sucker for strays," his sister teased. "Don't worry about Lily. She can stay here tonight if needed." As the mall prepared to close, still no one had come for Sophia. The security guard approached their table with a concerned expression. "CPS is backed up tonight. They won't have a placement until morning." Jake looked at Sophia's exhausted face and made a decision that would alter the course of his life forever. "I can take her for the night. I've already been background checked for my daughter's school volunteering." After a series of calls and paperwork, Jake was given temporary emergency custody until morning. As he drove home with Sophia asleep in Lily's booster seat, he had no idea that across the country, a private jet was being urgently fueled for takeoff. The next morning, Jake made pancakes for both girls, who had bonded instantly. Lily was thrilled to have someone to show her toys to, and Sophia seemed to bloom in the warm, chaotic environment of their small apartment. "My house doesn't have drawings on the refrigerator," Sophia observed, studying Lily's artwork with fascination. "Well, you're welcome to add some," Jake offered, sliding another pancake onto her plate. The doorbell rang just as they were finishing breakfast. Jake opened the door to find a police officer and a woman in a crisp suit who introduced herself as from Child Protective Services. "We've located Sophia Montgomery's family," the CPS worker explained. "Her mother is on her way." Jake felt an unexpected pang of loss but nodded. "Of course. She's just finishing breakfast." "There's something else," the officer added, his expression serious. "The nanny has been arrested. She abandoned Sophia deliberately." Before Jake could process this information, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside his apartment building. Two men in dark suits emerged first, scanning the area before opening the rear door. The woman who stepped out made Jake freeze in recognition. Everyone in America would recognize Alexandra Montgomery, tech CEO, philanthropist, and one of the richest women in the world. Her face regularly graced magazine covers and news programs, her company's innovations changing the technological landscape. And apparently, she was Sophia's mother. Alexandra Montgomery moved with purpose toward his door, her expression unreadable behind large sunglasses. When she removed them, Jake was struck by her eyes, the exact same shade of deep blue as Sophia's. "Where is my daughter?" she asked, her voice controlled but tight with emotion. "She's inside," Jake replied, stepping back to let her enter. "She's safe." She's been very brave. Alexandra's composure cracked slightly at his words. She moved past him into the apartment, stopping when she saw Sophia at the kitchen table with Lily. "Mommy!" Sophia cried, jumping down and running to her mother. Alexandra knelt, gathering her daughter into a fierce embrace. For a moment, the billionaire CEO was just a terrified mother reunited with her child. Jake felt like an intruder witnessing their private reunion. When Alexandra finally stood, still holding Sophia's hand, she turned to Jake with an intensity that made him nervous. "Thank you for taking care of her," she said formally. "My team will ensure you're compensated for your trouble." "It wasn't any trouble," Jake replied honestly. "She's a wonderful little girl." Something flickered across Alexandra's face, surprise, perhaps, or assessment. She glanced around the modest apartment, taking in the mismatched furniture, the school photos of Lily, the general lived-in warmth of the place. "Nevertheless, I'm grateful." She handed him a business card. "If you'll send any expenses to this email, my office will handle it immediately." Jake wanted to refuse but sensed it would only make an awkward situation more uncomfortable. He accepted the card, noticing it had only her name and an email address, no title, no company name. The card of someone who needed no introduction. As Alexandra prepared to leave with Sophia, the little girl broke away and ran back to Lily, giving her a hug. Then, to Jake's surprise, she came to him and wrapped her arms around his legs. "Thank you for the pancakes, Mr. Jake," she said solemnly. Jake knelt down. "You're very welcome, Sophia. Take care of yourself, okay?" Alexandra watched this exchange with an unreadable expression. As they left, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, something beyond the simple act of helping a lost child. He had no idea how right he was. 3 days later, Jake was closing up the cafe when a black SUV pulled up outside. His heart jumped to his throat when Alexandra Montgomery stepped out, this time alone. "Mr. Collins," she said as she entered. "Do you have a moment?" Jake nodded, gesturing to a table. "Can I get you anything? Coffee?" "No, thank you." She sat, her posture perfect, hands folded on the table. "I wanted to speak with you personally, not through assistants or lawyers." Jake sat across from her, suddenly aware of his wrinkled work shirt and the coffee stain on his sleeve. "Sophia hasn't stopped talking about you and your daughter," Alexandra began. "She's asked repeatedly when she can see you again." "She's welcome anytime," Jake said automatically. "Lily's been asking about her too." Alexandra studied him for a long moment. "I've had you investigated, Mr. Collins." Jake blinked in surprise. "Excuse me?" "I needed to know who had spent time with my daughter." "It's nothing personal." "And what did you find?" Jake asked, unsure whether to be offended or amused. "That you're exactly what you appear to be. A widower raising his daughter alone. A hard worker with no criminal record. Well liked by neighbors. Financially struggling but managing." She delivered these facts without judgment. "In short, a good man." "I'm not sure how to respond to that," Jake admitted. Alexandra took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you. Something that may be difficult to hear." The intensity of her gaze made Jake's stomach tighten with apprehension. 8 years ago, I was in a serious relationship with a man named Thomas Reeves. We were young, ambitious. When I became pregnant, it was unexpected. Thomas didn't want children. He believed they would interfere with our careers. Jake listened, confused about why she was sharing this personal history. "I disagreed," Alexandra continued. "I ended the relationship and had Sophia. Thomas signed away his parental rights before she was born, wanting no involvement." She paused, seeming to gather herself. 2 days ago, I showed Sophia the photos from the security cameras of you helping her at the mall. She pointed to something I hadn't noticed. Alexandra reached into her purse and removed a photograph, sliding it across the table. It was a picture of Jake leading Sophia by the hand through the mall. "Look at your left wrist," she said quietly. Jake glanced down at the distinctive birthmark on his wrist, a small, irregular shape that resembled a crescent moon. In the photo, it was clearly visible. He looked back at Alexandra, still not understanding. "Thomas had the same birthmark," she said. "Identical. In the exact same place." Jake felt the world tilt slightly. "What are you saying?" "Thomas Reeves died in a climbing accident 7 years ago. Before I met him, he had another name. He changed it when he moved to California to reinvent himself." Alexandra's eyes never left his face. "His birth name was Thomas Collins." Jake stared at her, the implications slowly dawning on him. "You think?" "I know," Alexandra corrected gently. "Thomas was your brother, wasn't he?" The question hit Jake like a physical blow. His estranged brother Tom, who had left their small hometown at 18, changing his name and cutting ties with the family. The brother who had made it big in Silicon Valley but never came home, not even for their parents' funerals. "How did you know?" Jake whispered. "The birthmark was the first clue. Then your surname. I had my team dig deeper." She hesitated. "There's more, Jake. Something I only confirmed this morning with DNA tests." The cafe seemed to grow very quiet, the hum of the refrigerators the only sound as Alexandra Montgomery spoke the words that would change everything. "Sophia is your niece. But Lily. Lily is Thomas's daughter too. If you're shocked right now, imagine how Jake felt. Hit that subscribe button now because you won't believe what happens next in this incredible true story." Jake's mind reeled, unable to process her words. "That's impossible. Lily is my daughter. Mine and Marie's." Alexandra's expression softened with compassion. "Did Marie ever meet Thomas?" The question triggered a memory Jake had long buried. Marie at a tech conference in San Francisco for her former job, before they were married. Coming home upset, refusing to talk about it. Their brief separation afterward. The reconciliation when she discovered she was pregnant. "They met once," he admitted, his voice hollow. "But that doesn't mean." "I had my medical team compare the DNA samples discreetly collected from both girls," Alexandra said. "They're half-sisters, Jake. Thomas is their biological father." Jake stood abruptly, needing space, air, distance from the words that threatened to unravel his entire understanding of his life. "Why are you telling me this? What do you want?" Alexandra remained seated, her composure intact despite the emotional weight of the conversation. "I believe children deserve to know their family. All of their family. Sophia has no one but me. Now I discover she has an uncle and a half-sister." She stood then, facing him directly. "I'm not here to disrupt your life or take anything from you. Lily is your daughter in every way that matters. But these girls share blood. They're connected. I think they deserve the chance to know each other." Jake leaned against the counter, his world spinning. Marie had never told him. Had she known? Had she taken the truth to her grave? "I need time," he managed to say. "This is a lot." Alexandra nodded. "Of course. Take whatever time you need." She placed another card on the table. "This has my personal number. When you're ready to talk, call me directly." As she turned to leave, she paused. "For what it's worth, I think Thomas would be proud of the father you've become. Even if Lily isn't biologically yours, it's clear you're her real father in every way that counts." After she left, Jake sat alone in the darkened cafe for hours, memories of his brother, his wife, and his life replaying with new context. By morning, he had made his decision. 1 month later, Jake watched as Lily and Sophia chased each other through the sprawling gardens of Alexandra's estate. The girls had formed an instant bond that went beyond their initial meeting, a connection that now made painful sense. "They look happy," Alexandra commented, joining him on the terrace. "They do," Jake agreed. The past month had been a whirlwind of emotions, conversations, and adjustments. DNA tests had confirmed Alexandra's revelation. Lily was indeed Thomas's biological daughter, making her and Sophia half-sisters. Jake had struggled with anger at Marie's deception, grief for the brother he'd never truly known, and fear about what this meant for his relationship with Lily. But watching the girls together, he couldn't deny the rightness of their connection. "Have you decided about my offer?" Alexandra asked, her tone carefully neutral. She had proposed a solution that had initially seemed outrageous, a position managing the charitable foundation she had established in Thomas's memory, with a salary generous enough to ensure Lily's future education and a guest house on her property where Jake and Lily could live while maintaining their independence. "It feels like charity," Jake had protested during their initial discussions. "It's not charity," Alexandra had countered. "It's family. And it's practical. The girls should know each other. They should have the chance to grow up together, at least part of the time." Now, watching the girls play, Jake found himself reconsidering. His initial instinct to protect his independence was being challenged by the undeniable joy on Lily's face as she played with the sister she never knew she had. "I have conditions," Jake said finally. Alexandra turned to him, one eyebrow raised. "I'm listening." "I keep my apartment. Lily and I live there most of the time, maintaining our normal life. We stay here on weekends and school breaks." He met her gaze directly. "And I want a separate contract for the foundation work, a real job with responsibilities, not a sinecure." A smile touched Alexandra's lips. "You really are nothing like him." "Thomas?" She nodded. He would have taken everything offered without a second thought. "I'm not doing this for money," Jake said firmly. "I'm doing it for Lily. And for Sophia." "I know." Alexandra's expression softened. "That's why I trust you." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the immaculate lawn, Jake called to Lily. She came running, Sophia close behind, both girls breathless and laughing. "Can Sophia come see my school sometime?" Lily asked, her arms slung casually around her half-sister's shoulders. Jake glanced at Alexandra, who gave a small nod. "I think that can be arranged," he told Lily. Later that night, after both girls had fallen asleep, Lily in the guest room that was slowly becoming hers, Sophia in her own bedroom down the hall, Jake found himself standing in Alexandra's home office, looking at a photograph he hadn't seen before. It showed Thomas, his brother, standing beside Alexandra on a beach somewhere, both of them young and smiling. Thomas had his arm around her, his left wrist visible with the same crescent birthmark Jake had always shared. "He never told me he had a brother," Alexandra said quietly, entering the room behind him. "I found out only after he died, going through his things. There was an old photo of you two as children. He'd written your name on the back, but I had no way to find you." Jake studied his brother's face in the photograph. The resemblance was there, though Thomas looked more polished, more confident, a man who had remade himself into someone new. "We weren't close," Jake admitted. "After our parents died, I thought someday he might come back. I never imagined." He gestured to the sprawling house, the wealth, the secret family his brother had left behind. Alexandra moved to stand beside him. "Life rarely follows the path we expect." "No," Jake agreed, thinking of Marie, of the secret she'd kept, of the strange twist of fate that had brought him to this moment. "It doesn't." 6 months later, the arrangement had evolved into something none of them could have predicted. Jake split his time between his apartment and Alexandra's estate. The foundation work challenged him in ways his cafe job never had, allowing him to help families facing medical crises similar to what he'd experienced with Marie. Lily thrived with the stability of her familiar school and friends, combined with weekends of adventure with Sophia. The girls had become inseparable, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. What surprised Jake most was his evolving relationship with Alexandra. Behind her public persona of cool efficiency was a woman of remarkable depth and vulnerability, a single mother who had shouldered enormous responsibilities while protecting her daughter from the harsh spotlight of public attention. They found themselves talking late into the night after the girls were asleep, sharing stories of Thomas, of their separate journeys as single parents, of their hopes for their daughters' futures. "I never thought I'd share Sophia with anyone," Alexandra confessed one evening as they sat on the terrace, watching the stars. "I've been so focused on protecting her, I never considered what she might be missing." "A family," Jake said simply. Alexandra nodded. "You've given her that. You and Lily both." The moment stretched between them, comfortable yet charged with unspoken possibility. 1 year to the day after Sophia had gotten lost in the mall, they gathered for a celebration, not just the four of them, but Jake's sister and her family too. As Jake watched Alexandra laughing with his sister, Sophia and Lily teaching their cousins a complicated hand-clapping game, he felt a sense of completion he hadn't experienced since Marie's death. That evening, after the guests had left and the girls were asleep, Alexandra found Jake in the garden. "I have something for you," she said, handing him a small box. Inside was a key. Jake looked at her questioningly. "It's to the front door," she explained. "Not the guest house. This house." She took a deep breath. "I'm not proposing anything specific, Jake. I'm just acknowledging that whatever this is between us, it's becoming something important. To me. To Sophia. And I hope to you and Lily too." Jake closed his hand around the key, understanding the weight of what she was offering, not just access to her home, but to her life, her heart, her future. "Thomas would probably find this hilarious," Jake said with a small smile. "His brother and his ex." Alexandra laughed softly. "I think he'd approve. You're the better man, Jake. You always were." "I'm just a guy who found a lost little girl in a mall," Jake said, downplaying his role in the remarkable chain of events. "No," Alexandra corrected him gently. "You're the man who completed our family when you didn't even know it was yours to complete." As they stood together under the stars, Jake realized that sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin with the simplest acts of kindness. A lost child. A helping hand. A truth revealed. And sometimes, just sometimes, those journeys lead exactly where you're meant to be. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories that remind us how unexpectedly life can change in a single moment. Remember, family isn't always defined by blood, sometimes it's created through the choices we make and the love we choose to give.